The billionaire never saw it coming. One handshake, one dinner, one translation, and it was supposed to change everything. But what he didn't know was that the people smiling at him were about to destroy his life. Until the waitress did something no one expected. The Friday night crowd buzzed inside the Velvet Vine, a high-end restaurant nestled in the heart of Manhattan's Upper East Side. Jazz floated from a live band by the bar, and the low amber light painted the room in warmth and wealth. Naomi Brooks balanced a silver tray on her right hand, weaving between tables with the practiced grace of someone who had learned to dance through chaos. She'd been on her feet since 4 p.m., yet her mind was still split between memorizing orders and mentally reviewing her notes for a night school linguistics exam. At 26, Naomi had mastered the art of blending in, not too noticeable to guests, but never invisible to management. Tonight, however, there was no blending in. At table 7, seated by the window overlooking Park Avenue, sat a man who made heads turn even in a room full of power. Khaled Al-Mansour. The name had been whispered since his reservation appeared that morning. Billionaire entrepreneur from Dubai, rumored to be finalizing a major merger with the U.S. tech giant. Dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, every detail about him was intentional, from the silver cufflinks engraved with Arabic calligraphy to the quiet confidence in the way he held his glass. Beside him sat Lena, his translator and assistant, sharp, elegant, and overly attentive. She never let Naomi speak directly to Khaled, insisting on filtering every word. When Naomi asked if the gentleman would prefer sparkling or still water, Lena replied before Khaled could open his mouth. Sparkling. Always sparkling. Khaled gave a polite smile, but his eyes flickered with mild amusement, as if he found the exchange unnecessary. Naomi caught that look. She smiled back briefly, setting down the bottle. The rest of the table was filled with American executives, mid-40s, expensive watches, loud laughs. They toasted to new horizons and global opportunity, words that sounded hollow to Naomi, who had seen this kind of corporate theater before. She returned with their appetizers, Moroccan lamb skewers and saffron rice, and caught Khaled saying something quietly to Lena in Arabic. Naomi wasn't supposed to understand, but the words rolled clearly through her mind. They think money buys loyalty. It doesn't. Her lips twitched slightly, the ghost of a smile. He was more observant than most men she'd served. When she came back to refill his glass, Khaled looked up, noticing her pause as Lena translated. "You speak Arabic?" he asked suddenly, his voice smooth and accented but fluent. Lena froze, startled, before Naomi could even reply. Naomi tilted her head, deciding whether to reveal her secret. "Just a little," she said carefully, her tone playful. "Interesting," he replied, smiling faintly. "Your pronunciation says otherwise." The air thickened. Lena quickly stepped in, her smile stiff. "Mr. Al-Mansour prefers not to mix business with." Khaled raised a hand gently. "Relax, Lena." For a moment, Naomi felt a shift, a spark of curiosity between two people who lived in different worlds, but somehow spoke the same language. As she turned to leave, she caught Lena's eyes narrowing slightly, possessive, guarded, almost hostile. It wasn't jealousy. It was something colder. By the time the dinner crowd thinned out around 11 p.m., Naomi's shift was almost over. She untied her apron and went to return a tray, passing by the bar, and stopped. Lena was there, no longer composed. She leaned against the counter beside two men in dark suits Naomi hadn't seen earlier. They spoke in low tones, fast, hushed, dangerous. Naomi was about to keep walking when one phrase, whispered in Arabic, froze her mid-step. "He doesn't know he's already lost everything." The word stabbed through the hum of music. Naomi's stomach dropped. Her pulse quickened. Lena responded in Arabic, her voice clipped. "Tomorrow, after he signs. He'll never trace it back." Naomi's mind spun. "You meant Khaled?" She looked at the reflection of the three of them in the bar mirror. Lena laughed lightly, touching one man's arm. It looked like an innocent conversation to anyone else, but Naomi knew what she'd heard. She quietly backed away, heart pounding. The billionaire at table 7 had no idea that the woman sitting beside him wasn't just translating his words. She was rewriting his fate. And Naomi Brooks, The waitress no one noticed, had just understood everything. The velvet vine was a different world after midnight. The laughter was gone. Tables stood cleared, chairs stacked, and the soft glow of wall sconces threw long shadows across the empty dining floor. Outside, Manhattan hummed faintly, a restless city that never really slept. Naomi lingered near the kitchen doorway, wiping down a counter she'd already cleaned twice. She should have clocked out an hour ago, but the conversation she'd overheard earlier still echoed in her mind. He doesn't know he's already lost everything. Those words looped like a warning she couldn't ignore. In the dim reflection of the espresso machine, she saw movement near the back corridor, the private lounge where VIP guests sometimes had after-dinner drinks. Lena. She was back, and she wasn't alone. Naomi's instincts kicked in. She quietly set her rag aside, loosened her shoes to silence her steps, and slipped behind the partition near the hallway. From there, she had a partial view through the glass door, just enough to see Lena seated at a small table with two men. Both wore tailored suits, but not the polished kind you'd find in a boardroom. These men looked like professionals of another kind, clean, cold, and deliberate. One of them was the same man she'd seen earlier at the bar, heavyset, bald, with a scar running down his neck. The other had European accent when he spoke, his words mixing English with clipped French phrases. Naomi crouched slightly, staying in the shadow. "Demain Madden," the Frenchman said. "We need his signature before noon." Lena replied in Arabic, her tone low and precise. "The account is ready. Once he signs, transfer the funds immediately. He'll think it's the company's escrow." The bald man added in Russian, his voice harsh. "Make sure he doesn't find out too soon." Naomi's heart pounded. Her mind, however, was steady, translating, cataloging, connecting the dots. 3 languages. 1 plot. She was listening to a conspiracy unfold, a multilingual crime built on greed and betrayal. She leaned closer, trying to catch the rest of their plan when Lena's phone lit up, illuminating her face. She looked colder than Naomi had ever seen her. Not the polite, professional assistant, but someone who'd crossed lines long ago. "He trusts me," Lena said in English this time, calm and certain. "Tomorrow, I'll hand him the final papers. He signs. We send the money to the offshore account. No one will trace it. By the time he realizes, we'll be gone." Naomi's fingers clenched around her apron. "He trusts me." That line hit hard. Khalid had looked at Lena earlier with the quiet respect of a man who believed in loyalty, who had no idea he was sitting beside a loaded trap. A sudden pang of memory flickered in Naomi's mind. Her mother, standing in front of a chalkboard covered in different alphabets. "Every language," her mother used to say, "is a key to someone's truth. Learn enough of them, and you'll never be blind." Her mother, Professor Ruth Brooks, had been a linguistics professor at Columbia, known for her brilliance and her stubborn moral compass. Naomi's father, a UN peacekeeper, had taught her Swahili before she was 8. Between the two of them, words weren't just communication. They were power, protection, and sometimes survival. By 18, Naomi spoke 7 languages fluently: English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Russian, Swahili, and Mandarin. But instead of landing a diplomatic job like her father dreamed, she'd ended up waiting tables to pay for night school, caught between ambition and rent. And now, by sheer accident, or maybe fate, those 7 languages might save a man's life. Back in the lounge, the Frenchman tapped his laptop, whispering, "He'll sign here." The moment his stylus touches the screen, the transfer executes. Naomi's stomach knotted. It wasn't just fraud. It was theft on an international scale. Millions, maybe billions. And Khalid al-Mansour, despite his wealth and intelligence, was walking straight into it. She reached for her phone, her thumb hovering over the record button. But just as she started the voice memo app, her notification tone buzzed, loud, sharp, impossible to ignore. Lena froze mid-sentence. Both men looked toward the hallway. Naomi's breath caught. Her screen glowed faintly in the darkness, betraying her. The bald man's eyes narrowed. He rose from his seat, scanning the corridor like a predator. "Someone's here," he muttered in Russian. Naomi's pulse thundered in her ears. She backed up slowly, praying the darkness would hide her. But his footsteps started toward her, deliberate, heavy, getting closer with each second. The soft hum of the refrigerator masked her ragged breathing, but only barely. Her mind raced. If they catch me, I'm done. The man's shadow stretched along the wall, growing closer, until his hand touched the corner of the partition. Buzz! Another sound, her phone vibrating again in her palm. His eyes darted straight toward her hiding spot. Naomi froze completely, breath shallow, as the man's voice cut through the silence. Who's there? Saturday evening came cloaked in gold, the kind of Manhattan sunset that made the glass towers glow like altars of ambition. Inside the velvet vine, the restaurant buzzed again, though this night felt heavier, tense beneath its elegance. Naomi Brooks could feel it in her bones, the air charged, the calm before a storm. She adjusted her crisp black uniform, trying to focus on her duties. But every sound, the clinking of silverware, the chatter of investors, the music from the grand piano, felt distant, muffled by the thrum of her own racing heartbeat. Khalid Al-Mansour was due any minute. The private dining section had been closed off for his exclusive meeting with the American investors, and Lena, of course, who had arranged every detail with meticulous precision. Naomi had barely slept after last night's discovery. The image of those men, their voices whispering the account, the signature, still haunted her. She'd managed to sneak out undetected, hard hammering, but she knew if they caught her, she'd have vanished without a trace. Now, as she laid out fine glassware at Khalid's table, she noticed two of the same men from last night, seated discreetly in a corner booth pretending to enjoy cocktails. The bald one had traded his dark suit for a casual blazer, but his eyes were unmistakable, cold, calculating, predatory. Naomi's throat tightened. They're here again. Moments later, Khalid arrived, confident, radiant under the chandeliers, his presence commanding without effort. He greeted everyone warmly, shaking hands, offering polite smiles. The world saw a man in control, a billionaire untouched by worry. But Naomi knew better. Tonight, he was a target wrapped in charm. Lena followed closely behind him, dressed in an elegant white dress, her demeanor calm, almost angelic. She carried a sleek black folder, the same one Naomi had seen on the table the night before. The contract, the trigger. Naomi swallowed hard, her pulse skipping. She had to warn him somehow, discreetly, without blowing her cover. As she approached to serve wine, Khalid glanced up and smiled faintly, recognizing her. "Ah, the multilingual waitress," he said warmly. Naomi's lips curved in a small, nervous smile. "Good evening, sir," she said softly, then shifted the tray slightly, pretending to steady herself. She had already slipped a small folded note under one of the serving napkins. It was written in Arabic, the words simple but urgent. "It's a trap. Do not sign anything. You're in danger." She set the wine bottle down gently, then turned to leave. But before she could move away, Lena's manicured hand slid across the table, lifting the napkin and revealing the note. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the Arabic script. For the briefest moment, her mask cracked. The warmth drained from her face, replaced by sharp, glacial fury. She crushed the paper in her palm, forcing a polite smile back on her lips as she looked up. "Naomi," she said sweetly, "could you bring another bottle of the Chateau Margaux, please? The 2015. Naomi nodded, her stomach sinking. She could feel Lena's gaze burning into her back as she walked toward the bar. She knows. Behind her, the investors laughed loudly, oblivious. Khalid looked mildly curious, but said nothing, assuming it was some minor service issue. From the corner booth, one of the men lifted his glass in mock salute toward Lena. She gave the slightest nod. Naomi caught the exchange in the reflection of the polished wine rack, and the pit in her stomach deepened. When she returned with the bottle, she tried to steady her trembling hands. She had to stay calm. Her every move was being watched. The dinner went on, toasts, laughter, handshakes, the language of deals and deception. Khalid's stylus hovered over the digital pad that displayed the final agreement. Lena leaned in close, whispering instructions, her tone sugary and composed. Naomi took a step back near the service station, her heart screaming for her to act. Then, faintly, she heard it again. Two men in the corner booth, speaking quietly in Arabic. "When he signs the deal," one murmured. "Take him outside. Don't miss." The world seemed to stop. Naomi's blood ran cold. She looked toward Khalid, smiling, unaware, pen in hand, and then to the men in the booth, their eyes trained like hawks on their prey. Her breathing grew shallow. Every instinct told her to run, to scream, to do anything. But if she reacted now, she'd expose herself too soon. Her mind raced. She needed another plan, something fast, something bold. Across the room, Lena glanced at her watch and smiled softly at Khalid. "It's time," she said. Naomi's hand tightened around the edge of the service counter until her knuckles turned white. "Not yet. Don't sign. Please don't sign." But the stylus was already in Khalid's hand, poised above the screen. And Naomi knew that one stroke could seal not just a deal, but his fate. The soft sound of the stylus tapping against the glass screen was all Naomi could hear. Every breath in her chest froze as Khalid al-Mansour leaned forward, eyes scanning the final page of the digital contract. His hand hovered over the signature box, calm, unaware, trusting. Across from him, Lena's lips curved faintly, the satisfaction of a plan about to mature. The two men in the corner booth stood, pretending to adjust their jackets, but Naomi saw it. The synchronized movement, the unspoken readiness, the look of predators about to pounce. Her pulse roared in her ears. She had seconds, maybe less. Without thinking, Naomi moved. She stepped away from the service station, dropped her tray, and crossed the distance to table 7, so fast that heads turned. The clatter of silverware echoed as conversations paused mid-sentence. Before Lena or anyone else could react, Naomi reached Khalid, her voice low but urgent. She grabbed his wrist and whispered in Arabic, her words trembling but fierce. "Don't sign. It's a trap." For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Khalid blinked, startled, his gaze flickering between Naomi and Lena. "What?" he breathed. Lena's expression shattered, shocked, then fury. "She's lying." Lena snapped, her composure gone. "She's crazy, Khalid." But Naomi didn't wait for reason. She yanked his hand back, just as the bald man from the corner booth reached into his jacket. Then bang! A gunshot ripped through the dining room. Screams erupted. Glass shattered. Chairs toppled. Naomi ducked, dragging Khalid with her, the bullet tearing through the flower vase where his head had been a second ago. She grabbed his arm and hissed, "Move." They sprinted toward the kitchen as chaos consumed the restaurant, patrons diving under tables, waiters scattering, security radios crackling. Lena's voice screamed behind them, "Stop them! Stop her!" The kitchen door slammed open with a violent swing. Pots clattered, chefs shouted, the scent of garlic and smoke thick in the air. Naomi shoved Khalid behind a prep table and pointed toward the rear exit. "This way." He followed, dazed but trusting her now. Another gunshot echoed, closer this time. A bottle exploded above them, raining glass. They burst through the back door into the alley, the cold rain drenching them instantly. Manhattan's night lights blurred in puddles on the asphalt. Naomi's chest burned as she ran, her shoes slipping on the slick ground. Behind them, heavy footsteps pounded closer. She didn't look back. She just kept running, pulling Khalid by the hand. They turned a corner, skidding behind a row of dumpsters. The smell of wet garbage and rain filled the air, but it was cover, dark, hidden, safe for now. Naomi pressed her back against the brick wall, gasping. Khalid leaned beside her, his chest heaving. Water ran down his face, mixing with confusion and fear. "What is happening?" he demanded, his accent thick, his tone edged with disbelief. Naomi swallowed hard, her voice trembling but firm. "Your translator, Lena. She's not who you think. I overheard her last night. She's working with those men. They plan to make you sign fake documents to transfer your funds offshore. They were going to kill you after the deal." Khalid stared at her, rain dripping from his lashes. You understood all that?" She nodded. "Arabic, French, Russian. I speak them all. I heard everything." He blinked slowly, processing, his face tightening with anger and realization. "And you risked your life for me." Naomi managed a weak, breathless smile. "Someone had to." A siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Then came the distinct strobe of red and blue, reflecting off the wet pavement. Police cruisers screeched to a halt outside the restaurant, shouting commands, the sharp bark of authority cutting through the storm. Naomi peered from behind the dumpster. Officers swarmed the alley and dining area. The bald man was tackled to the ground near the side entrance. The other fled but didn't get far. And then Lena. She was dragged out in handcuffs, her white dress streaked with rain, her face twisted in desperation. "You don't understand," she shouted. "He would have betrayed me first." Her words fell flat against the flashing lights. Naomi watched silently, her hands trembling from adrenaline. Khaled stood beside her, the shock finally giving way to gratitude, and something softer. Their eyes met, silent recognition passing between them. She had saved his life, and he knew it. Rain poured harder, masking the sirens and the chaos as the last of the culprits were shoved into police cars. Naomi exhaled deeply, the first real breath she'd taken in hours. Her soaked hair clung to her face, her uniform ruined, but she didn't care. Khaled turned to her, his voice low, almost reverent. "You shouldn't have been there tonight." She met his gaze. "Neither should you." For a heartbeat, they both stood still, the world narrowing to the rhythm of rain and distant police chatter. Everything was broken, and yet everything was saved. The morning light bled through the glass walls of Khaled Al-Mansour's penthouse office, gilding everything in gold. The city below was alive, taxis gliding through wet streets, the hum of traffic echoing faintly from 30 floors down. Yet inside it was calm, almost sacred. Naomi stood near the window, her reflection framed by the Manhattan skyline. She still couldn't believe she was here, dressed neatly in borrowed office attire, hair tied back, a small visitor's badge clipped to her blouse. Just a few nights ago, she'd been a waitress at La Verriere, clearing half-empty glasses and dodging condescending stares. Now she was standing in the office of a man whose name appeared in Forbes. Behind her, Khaled's voice broke the silence. "You look calmer today." She turned. He stood by his desk, no longer the guarded businessman she'd seen that night. His face was softer, his eyes carrying both weariness and warmth. "I slept for the first time in 3 days," she said, forcing a small smile. He gestured to the seat across from him. "Please sit." She obeyed, her heart drumming lightly. On the desk lay a neatly folded newspaper. Its headline stretched across the front page. "The Waitress Who Saved a Billionaire." Her breath caught. Beneath the headline was her photo, a candid shot someone had taken as police escorted her from the restaurant, drenched in rain, her eyes fierce and unyielding. Naomi blinked. That's me." Khaled chuckled softly. "Yes, you became quite the story. The authorities confirmed it all. Lena and those men were part of an international fraud ring. They've been under investigation for months. You exposed them before we even knew they were close." He leaned forward, his tone turning more personal. "You didn't just save my fortune, Naomi. You saved my life." Naomi looked down at her hands. "I just did what anyone would do." Khaled shook his head slowly. "No, anyone else would have stayed silent, or pretended not to hear. You listened, in every sense of the word." There was a pause, long and full. The hum of the city filled the room again. Finally, Khaled stood, walking to the window beside her. "You know," he said quietly, "when I came to this country, I thought I understood every language I needed. English, French, Arabic, the language of business, of numbers." He turned to her, his eyes thoughtful. "But you reminded me there's another one, the language of intent, of courage." Naomi met his gaze, and for a moment, words seemed unnecessary. He took a small black folder from his desk and handed it to her. Inside was a formal letter, embossed with his company's insignia. She frowned slightly, scanning the page. Her eyes widened. "Translator and cultural advisor?" she read aloud, disbelief softening her voice. Khaled nodded. "It's not charity. You're fluent in 6 languages. I check your record. But more importantly, you hear what people mean, not just what they say. I want that near me." Naomi blinked hard, fighting tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." he said gently. That's enough. A slow, incredulous smile spread across her face. Yes. They stood in silence again, the city stretching infinitely around them. The light shifted as clouds drifted across the sun, painting them both in amber and silver. Khalid exhaled deeply, almost as if letting go of everything that had nearly destroyed him. The police told me something strange, he added. Lena spoke 7 languages. 7. And yet, she couldn't tell the truth in any of them. Naomi looked out the window, her eyes following the horizon where skyscrapers met the clouds. Her voice was soft, steady, almost poetic. Sometimes, she said, the world speaks in lies. You just need to understand the right language. Khalid smiled, the kind of smile that carried gratitude and admiration both. And what language was that, Naomi? She turned to him, her gaze calm and certain. The 7th one, the language of truth. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The city gleamed like it had been washed clean. For a moment, they just stood there, 2 souls from opposite worlds, connected by something deeper than coincidence. As Naomi closed the folder and held it to her chest, she knew her life had changed forever. Not because she'd saved a billionaire, but because she had listened and been heard. And somewhere deep in her heart, she smiled at the thought that maybe, just maybe, truth was a language she was born to speak.